Hey guys, this is Tyler here. This is mostly directed to younger MGTOW guys here, but I think this is relevant to everyone. And the topic is why I would not worry about a promised pension, whether you're working for government, a corporation, or you may be working in one of these structures. I think this is very relevant because often, especially in more developed countries, companies, governments have these quote-unquote promised pensions that may or may not happen. I think older guys here can definitely relate to this well that have been in this position. Some of you guys have probably received pensions now, or you will, or you are supposed to at some point in the near future. Unfortunately nowadays, so firstly, most corporations do not have any guarantee of a pension system, and also governments often neither. There's been teacher unions in some states, even in the U.S., that don't guarantee pensions. I think one state in particular is Minnesota, and this is actually something that is very common now. In most corporations in the U.S., you will not receive a pension, or you're not supposed to. I used to work for UPS, and in the Teamster union, they had pensions and they still do. But I know that around 5 years ago, because they had a major budget problem with these pensions, they had to greatly reduce a large percentage of guys who already were receiving pensions or who were about to. So if they were supposed to receive like $3,000 per month, it was cut to like $1,500 a month. This was a big fiasco, and many guys, of course, were very angry about this, and it happened. It just occurred very sporadically, and this is something that's important to understand, is that many of these pension funds are almost like Ponzi schemes, unfortunately. It's kind of like a system where we see this, of course, with Social Security, that they don't really grow the fund so much. I mean, they call these like investment funds and all this, but what often actually happens is that they need more and more people to join the fund to help pay the early people that start contributing. And for them to be given funds back, they need all these new people coming in. It's something like a Ponzi scheme often. In many cases, they don't have actual proper good investment structures in place. And so the funds never really grow through investments. They grow because they have more people joining these funds. And I think this is one of the main reasons why many public and private sector retirement funds have become obsolete, or already are. My father, for example, he received a pension through his company, a private pension. He also receives Social Security, and he's in a very unusual position, even for a baby boomer age man in America. Many guys even that are baby boomer age now do not receive private pensions. Some guys that were public employees or in the military do get public sector pensions, but this in itself is not real common. And many guys, of course, they do a job, become a teacher. They became a teacher or joined the military, police, because they expect and anticipate to receive a pension from this situation, and sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. I know pensions too are common in some European countries, or they were like in France and Germany, but I think in these places also, especially in private situations, private corporations, they've started to pull these programs. So this isn't available. So many of these public sector employees and do these jobs for a long time, like 20 years, 25 years, 30 years, anticipating getting a pension. And so what sometimes happens is they may start the job when they're like 25 years old. They work the job for like 20 years until they're like 45, especially like in police or military. And then they can't actually collect the pension for like another 15 years, maybe 10 years, sometimes even longer than 15 years. It may be like 17 years. There's different bylaws that these pension funds have in place when someone can start collecting. I believe Some of the earliest ones are like military. Some of these guys, I think, can start collecting when they're like 55. Many of them have age requirements of like 60 or even 60 plus. And so if a guy is quote unquote retires at 45, they have like a 15-year span here or 10-year span. They have to find another job. And they also have to have hope that the fund's going to be in place for that many more years. Whether it's the government or corporation, as we see now with all that's happening around us, around the world, governments and corporations together may not have these funds. So guys that are like younger here, especially like under 30, under 40, I wouldn't even I mean, look at this as being worthy of joining a company or a public sector job, anticipating this benefit long term. I don't think in many cases this will amount. I think many teachers now that are supposed to retire in 20 years, I don't think many of them will see these pension funds that they've been contributing to. And teachers even in 10 years may not receive it. Now, certainly in 30 years, I don't honestly think so. And this is just a reality. In private corporations, the same thing. I came from one of the strongest corporations in America, UPS, one of the top logistic companies in the world. And if they were having problems with their Teamster fund, I would imagine that many of these pension funds, many of these cases, the same problems. And that's why I would focus more on both your private asset holdings, on your own personal retirements, properties, stocks, cash, whatever it may be, gold, rather than look at this as the end-all be-all, because this pension may not be in place. And also use this as a reason not to just remain in a country or do a job, especially public sector job, with the anticipation you'll be getting a pension from this. I would see guys when I was at UPS, they were like 35 years old, thinking about the pension they were going to get like in 25 years. And sadly enough, some of these guys had already been working for like 10 or 15 years with the company. Anyone that knows anything about UPS knows some of these guys work a long time with the company. And they were like talking about getting this pension like in 20 or 25 years. I'm like, they may not be around, or the Teamsters may not be around, or they may just pull what they did like 5 years ago and just like slash off a huge percentage of your pension. So rather than getting $3,000, you get like $1,500, or it could even be lower. I can't imagine with the budget problems in the coming years. People obviously too can see that the boomers are living much longer than previous generations. So guys that are boomers now, that are in their 60s, many of these people live for 20, 30 more years. And many of them are receiving both Social Security and also pensions. It's a huge problem. And that's one of the main reasons I wouldn't use this as a reason, especially if you're looking at relocating to another country, to remain in that country or in your job. For a guy who's maybe been doing a public sector job for like 10 years, if you need like 20 years to get the pension, I would really consider if you think this is going to come to fruition. If you have to wait like 20 years to get the pension, it's a gamble. It's up to you, honestly. It shouldn't hold you back though, because it's just important to remember overnight it could be gone. You may not have any possibility of seeing this pension or retirement package or whatever it is. And also note that many public and private sector programs are rapidly changing. Many companies, as I stated, are simply getting rid of these pension programs. Governments now are also starting to downsize or totally get rid of these programs because they can't afford it. This isn't the same kind of promise like it used to be historically. This isn't something that should convince a younger guy to stay in a company or stay in a public sector job anticipating they'll receive this, because often they won't. I foresee 20 or 30 years down the road with where governments are going. If you're wanting to seek more consultation on this matter, if you're in this situation, please contact me. I can run through some areas with you, and also we can see if there's other alternatives out there.